Good morning. My name is Dan Schneider, and I am your worship associate this morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati. In this urban Unitarian Universalist religious community, we celebrate and support one another on our spiritual and ethical paths. We work for justice, dignity, and respect for the web of life. If this is your first time here, welcome. We invite you to join us for refreshments and conversation after the service out that way. And if you'd like to learn more about us, please fill out a visitor information form available at the Welcome Center opposite the entry doors. And now please join us in singing our vision. Oh, no, not yet. I'm sorry. First chalice lighting. This chalice lighting was written by Aisha Hauser and Susan Lawrence. We are Unitarian Universalists with minds that think, hearts that love, and hands that are ready to serve. Together we care for our earth and work for friendship and peace in our world. And now, please join in singing our vision song. The words will appear on the screen.
Once upon a time, there was a little girl, not so different from you, who was suddenly stuck in a rainstorm. She ran inside the nearest door to get away from the storm. As soon as she closed the door, a bright flash and a loud boom of thunder followed. The little girl knew that she would be stuck in the store for quite a while. She started to look around the store when the shopkeeper appeared. The shopkeeper was the oldest woman the little girl had ever seen. Her hair was as white as snow, and her face was all wrinkles. The little girl was brave enough to admit she was a little scared. "Young woman," said the old shopkeeper, "can I help you with something?" Then another bright flash and a loud boom came from outside. Immediately, the shopkeeper understood what was happening. "Ah," said the old shopkeeper, "did you run in here to escape the rain?" The little girl nodded slowly. "Well, you can wait here if you'd like in my little sanctuary. We've got a nice sturdy roof over our heads, and it will keep you safe. Sturdy roof over our heads, and it will keep you safe and dry." The little girl appreciated the offer, but she really needed to get back outside and continue on her way. The old shopkeeper could tell the little girl was hesitating. "Or," continued the shopkeeper, "you could head back outside with this." The old shopkeeper went behind the counter. And what do you think she pulled out? That's right, an umbrella. "Take this umbrella," said the old shopkeeper. "I don't know why it's raining, but I do know that you can keep dry under this portable sanctuary." The little girl jumped up and down with joy, but then she stopped. "But," she said shyly, I, I don't have any money." The old shopkeeper waved her off. "No worries, little girl. Just be sure to offer the umbrella to someone else when they need it." The little girl accepted the umbrella and headed back outside. She was happy and dry. She started skipping down the street when she saw a man wearing a suit, trying to keep dry with a newspaper over his head. She skipped over to the man and heard another loud boom. The newspaper began to fall apart under the heavy rain. The little girl held the umbrella up as high as she could. "Thank you," said the man. Remembering the words of the old shopkeeper, the little girl told the man, "I don't know why it's raining, but I do know that you can keep dry with me under this portable sanctuary." The man smiled in relief. He had been having a really bad day. See, he was wearing a suit because he was on his way to a job interview. He had been without work for so long, so long, and he was desperate. He had to walk to the interview because he couldn't afford a car. When it started to rain, he cursed his luck. He would show up to his really important interview soaked, and he knew it would make a really bad first impression. The little girl spotted her family in the store across the street. "Here," she said, "take the umbrella with you. I see my family right over there across the street." "Oh, I couldn't take your umbrella," said the man, feeling guilty. "No, take it," she said, shoving the umbrella in the man's hand as she started to go. Then she stopped, remembered what else the shopkeeper said, and added, "Just be sure to offer the umbrella to someone else when they need it." Then she ran off to meet her family. The man couldn't believe how nice the little girl was. He began to think about how lovely it would be to have a little girl of his own one day. Then another loud boom of thunder jolted him from his daydream. It was time to go. He was going to have to hurry because it was almost time for his very important interview. He began to run. Well, I can tell you that that man got the job he was interviewing for, and soon enough he was able to afford to buy a few umbrellas of his own. Whenever it would rain, he would bring not only his umbrella that the little girl had given him, he would bring 2 more smaller umbrellas to give away to people who were stuck in the rain. And every time he gave away an umbrella, he would say, "I don't know why it's raining, but I do know that you can keep dry under this portable sanctuary." Soon enough, everyone in the town had an umbrella that they would take with them. And if the townspeople passed by someone without an umbrella, they would give their own umbrella away and pass on the words now known by the entire town. "I don't know why it's raining, but I do know that you can keep dry under this portable sanctuary." My wonder question for you today is this: what does it mean to provide sanctuary? Share your thoughts at coffee hour today or with your family and friends this week.
I need this on. Hello? Okay. First, I want to thank Meredith for that wonderful story. She adds so much in so many ways to our congregation, to our community, and I wanted to take this time to thank her. We're going to sing the hymn, Come, Come, Whoever You Are, and I think words are going to appear on the screen. Yes? Okay. We're going to sing it 3 times. Good morning. Again, my name is Karen Rohr, and today I would like to read for you a letter that Reverend Peter Morales wrote on immigration. He was the president of the UUA, and he wrote it on May 30th in Phoenix to protest the controversial Arizona immigration law, SB 1070. So I ask you today, who has the moral right to be here? Oh, it's easy to determine who has the legal right to be here, but what about the moral right? Why is it all right if a wealthy family from New York retires to Arizona, but it is not all right if a poor family from Chiapas comes here seeking work? And here I must speak about the issue of some people being legal and some people being illegal. As a religious people who affirm human compassion, who advocate for human rights, who seek justice, we must never, never make the mistake of confusing legal right with a moral right. The forced removal of Native Americans from their land and on to reservations was legal. The importation and sale of African slaves was legal. Later on in my lifetime, we had laws across the South that were designed to prevent African American citizens from voting. Apartheid was legal in South Africa. The confiscation of the property of Jews at the beginning of the Nazi regime was legal. The Spanish Inquisition was legal. Crucifying Jesus was legal. Burning Michael Servetus, am I even close, at the stake for his Unitarian theology was legal. The fact that something is legal does not cut much ethical ice. The powerful have always used the legal system to oppress the powerless. Yes, as citizens, we should respect the rule of law, but more importantly, our duty is to create laws that are founded on our highest sense of justice, equity, and compassion. As Unitarian Universalists, we have a long and proud tradition of opposing unjust laws. One of our martyrs, the Reverend James Reeb, died while protesting Jim Crow laws in Alabama. We have before us some fundamental choices. There are loud voices that urge us to choose fear, denial, reactionary nationalism, and racism. We must resist. That path leads to division, hatred, violence, and death. There is a better way. It is a way that is urged upon us by our UU principles and by every major religious tradition. We must choose the path of compassion, hope, and human dignity. We must choose a path that is founded on the recognition that we are all connected, that we are all in this together. We don't need fences. The last thing we need today is more barriers that divide us. We need bridges. We need understanding and cooperation.
Thank you. I'm here to introduce our wonderful speaker and to talk about the IJPC. For those of you who don't know, you should know by the time you leave today one thing. IJPC stands for Intercommunity Justice and Peace Center. Intercommunity Justice and Peace Center. I first learned about the IJPC about 7 years ago when UJO, our state social action network, Unitarian Universalist Justice Ohio, agreed to cooperate with some other organizations in something called the Walk to Stop Executions. And ending the death penalty has long been a cause dear to my heart. And we walked 83 miles in 7 days from the death house where inmates were executed in Lucasville, outside that, past the death row in Chillicothe to the State House in Columbus, and held a rally. And then we wrote letters to people and got the word out about ending the death penalty, and we hope it will happen soon, finally, in this country, in this state. And the IJPC, that's one of their major focus areas, and that's how I got involved. And because I did all that walking, I ended up walking in the Flying Pig Half Marathon for a number of years, and a few of you contributed to help me raise some money for them. And now I contribute financially every year because I believe in what they do. And I want to tell you about our speaker today. Samantha Searles, who is speaking for us today, is the IJPC program manager for 2 programs, immigration and human trafficking. Samantha brings to her work a passion for carving space for people to find and use their voice to create change. Before she joined the IJPC, she spent the last few years before that as a community organizer for a local grassroots organization that works on environmental, economic, and justice issues here in Hamilton County. And I could add that Samantha, in her spare time, enjoys snuggling with her cat, Minerva, and she plays the clarinet with the Queen City Freedom Band. Samantha.
That last bit is always the fun part when people read my biography. Well, good morning this morning. My name is Samantha Searles. My pronouns are she and her, and I work for the Intercommunity Justice and Peace Center as a program manager. I just wanted to pause. Is the sound okay? Okay, good. I wasn't a cheerleader in high school, but I obviously was a band kid, and sometimes we were louder than the cheerleaders, just a side note. The first question, I also, heads up, I'm a pretty interactive speaker, so this might involve some hand raising, so you might want to like loosen up your shoulders and your elbows. So my first question is, raise your hand if you have heard of IJPC. Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, joined staff about 5.5 years ago after being a community organizer. And the piece of community organizing I enjoyed the most was the political education, was the moment when people realized that they had a right to use their voice and they had a right to be heard on whatever issue affected their lives. And so that's kind of how I got connected to IJPC in January of 2017. Yes, we all know what also happened that month. So I've been around to see IJPC grow, and I'm so grateful to be on this small dynamic staff. So I'm here this morning to tell you a little bit about us and share a couple of stories about our work. So our mission is to educate and advocate for peace, to challenge unjust local, national, and global systems, and to promote the creation of a nonviolent society. So that's a lot of words that basically say, through educational programming and advocacy campaigns, we work to create a more peaceful world through a strategy of nonviolence. That's what makes us unique in how we approach all of the issues that we work on. So we have been around since 1985, and we actually were started by nuns. Yes. One summer, some sisters were sitting around a pool here in Cincinnati, just talking about how they wish they could bring their communities together and have a bigger impact on the things that they cared about. So they built this intercommunity space which is what started IJPC. We are not a Catholic-based organization, but that is our foundational roots. And we have a lot of ongoing relationships with religious communities because of that history. In fact, we have sponsoring communities that help financially support our work. Right now, we have 22 sponsoring communities from the greater Cincinnati area, and they range from, of course, Catholic, Mennonite, Presbyterian, Quaker, Unitarian Universalist, hey, and United Methodist. I actually come from that faith tradition. I currently attend Clifton United Methodist Church, and I'm going to maybe grab some coffee, and then I'm going to Zoom over there because we are welcoming our new pastor today. So, and also my heart goes out to you all as you're in this transitional period because I know how hard it can be. We are currently located in the Peasley Neighborhood Center in Over the Rhine, which is a really rich, beautiful place to be. Peasley Neighborhood Center has been a staple in the community, fighting against gentrification, educating the children of the neighborhood, and then being a space for other nonprofits like ours to gather and meet. And as I mentioned before, we're a small, very tight-knit staff. We have 4 full-time positions. 2 program managers, I'm one of them, the other one her name is Becky. And then we have an operations manager who helps with our fundraising and communication, her name is Haley. And our director, Allison Reynolds-Berry, is currently ending her vacation, otherwise she would be up here this morning, but I get the honor of exploring a new faith community because it's kind of like my side interest, so I'm really grateful to be here. So specifically, we do everything through a lens of peace and nonviolence. And I'm sure you ask, what does that mean? And we've been asked that several times. So we decided to put something concrete together. And we are going to do a certificate program in peace promotion. It's going to be a series of 5 sessions that have been put together by a special fellow who, in honor of Sister Louise Akers, who was one of the key people in IJPC's history who passed away a few years ago. But through this partnership with the Mercy Volunteer Corps, we've been developing this certificate program. So coming this fall will be an opportunity for you all to learn about different aspects of peace, how to integrate that into the strategy when you're planning a campaign, and how to create interpersonal peace as well. So stay tuned for that. If you want to be in the loop, I do have a sign-up sheet at the back of our meeting space, our sanctuary, if you want to sign up for our emails. Also, the Peace and Nonviolence Framework is like an umbrella, and it allows us to respond to other issues as they arise. And so one of those issues we've been specifically focused on over the last few years is race and racism in Cincinnati. We have a group called Rethinking Racism, and they have done small group conversations. They've led a lot of educational programs and also have spoken up most recently at the school board that passed the motion to not talk about race. Yeah. So we have been involved in anti-racism in the community, and I want to bring your attention to our docu-series. It is a 3-part People's History of Race and Racism in Cincinnati. So here's the second question. Has anybody seen the docu-series yet? All right, I've got a handful, like 6 or 7, that's wonderful. I know there was a special showing just for the Unitarian Universalist crowd, so I figured that's how you got plugged in. But if you haven't seen it yet, also in the back, I have a half sheet that advertises our series. We're starting our next set of showings on Tuesdays at 11, so it's like a longer lunch break, and the first one is this Tuesday. So if you want to learn more about it and sign up, there's information in the back. So under this umbrella of peace and nonviolence, we put a lot of our energy behind 3 specific issues. As Dan mentioned, I run our human trafficking program, and so I do a lot of work with a local coalition called End Slavery Cincinnati. They are a program of the Salvation Army, and they run our local human trafficking hotline. And so because our services are more educational in nature, that partnership is really important to me, because they know what's going on. They know how human trafficking happens here in the greater Cincinnati area, and I can use that firsthand experience and the stories of the people that they help in our education to the public and in our advocacy campaigns. So right now in that program area, we are campaigning to expand criminal record expungement laws, which is the opportunity to if you can prove that you were trafficked and that you were forced to commit a crime, you can go through a process called expungement and get that crime erased from your record. And so we're trying to pass a bill in the Ohio State House that would do just that. So please, again, either sign up for our emails or check out our website to get involved with that campaign. The other campaign that I wanted to mention is our campaign to end the death penalty. We are against the death penalty. We feel that it is morally wrong, it's fiscally irresponsible, and there are other ways to promote accountability and healing. And so we have had a presence at every execution in Ohio since 1999. I attended one when I first started in 2017, and it was very powerful. We heard from the family that was in the execution chamber that they could hear the bell that we tolled at the moment when their loved one died in the parking lot. We were in the parking lot. And so it's a huge part of who we are. And again, like Dan said, we are closer than ever to abolishing the death penalty in Ohio. We've had a piece of legislation that actually had multiple hearings this legislative session, which never happens. It's a bipartisan wave. So I believe we're going to abolish the death penalty in the next 2 to 3 years. So thank you all who have supported that campaign. The coalition for that group is called No Death Penalty Ohio, and we collaborate with folks like ACLU Ohio, Ohioans to Stop Execution, and there's one other group that I always forget, so apologies. And then there's our immigration program, which is the other hat that I wear, and I wanted to uplift a couple of stories for you today. So the Immigrant Dignity Coalition, I also wanted to give you some background on, because this congregation has a key part of how this coalition got started. So we began in December of 2016, right after President Trump was elected, because we were worried, and rightly so, of the policies that were going to come through that were going to hurt our immigrant community. And so we gathered at the Peasley Neighborhood Center, and there was probably 15 to 20 organizations represented, as well as people from the immigrant community themselves, and they were like, we need to have a plan. And so when I joined the staff in January, we would meet in different community spaces, one of which was here at First Unitarian over in your meeting room. So when I walked in, I had like a rush of nostalgia. And David was involved with that. Thank you, David. And right now we have 35 organizations currently involved in our membership and who are dedicated to fighting back against policies that affront the dignity of our immigrant community. And our coalition is ran by an elected committee of 5 people, the majority of whom are from immigrant communities. I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm a white lady who appears female and was born in the United States that speaks English. So I hold a lot of privilege, and in order to run this coalition with justice and equality in mind, we had to restructure a couple of years ago and create this membership base that could then elect the steering committee. So right now on our steering committee, we have someone who has ties to Puerto Rico and Ecuador, I believe. We have someone from Mexico, someone from Guatemala, and someone from Senegal. So we have quite a representation, and then we also have a couple of allies too. And one of the things that the coalition I wanted to tell you about is we really value language justice. And what I mean by that is we don't have an official language here in the United States. And so expecting to work on immigration and expecting immigrants to speak English is very colonialistic of me. And so we have partnered with the Cincinnati Language Services Cooperative, which is a worker-owned interpretation business, to provide simultaneous interpretation during our coalition meetings. So that way, no matter what language we speak, we can all communicate and work together to solve local problems. And the last thing I wanted to say is that this work is not possible without the immigrant community themselves. You know, it's like that teach a man to fish kind of analogy. If we don't have that genuine partnership, then all of the work of the allies and the people that care is not going to be implemented, it's not going to be received. And so a lot of my work is focused on developing leaders within the immigrant community. One of the ways we did that was last summer, for 14 weeks, we shared stories from the local immigrant community on our social media. In the end, we shared 17 unique stories that represented 7 different countries. You can see them there on the screen. And throughout that campaign, we had over 40 volunteers. I like to call them leaders. So if you call me and say you want to volunteer, I'm going to say, no, you want to lead. But over the 40 volunteers we had that helped work on the campaign and write the language and create the toolkits, 78% of those people were from the local immigrant community. And total, all over the summer, we produced approximately 300 calls and emails to our local senators. So this is just one example of why immigrant leadership is important and that it can work. And I do want to speak up to the fact that this work is also not possible without allies that understand their role in this movement. And we're also doing a lot of training with that, or we're about to be, about how to be a good ally to the immigrant community, about how to recognize your privilege and power that you hold for just existing, whether you wanted it or not, it's given to you. And so the people in the Immigrant Dignity Coalition have really grown to understand when it's time to speak up, when it's time to step back, when it's time to come with ideas, when it's time to ask the immigrant community what their ideas are. And like, it's okay that it's messy or that it's not linear progress. And it's just a really beautiful space for anybody to plug in, and it really wouldn't be possible without these wonderful allies. And this photo is from the rally at the end of the campaign last summer. It was right before Labor Day. You can see we were wearing masks, and it was quite hot, so we found the shade. But we gathered outside Senator Rob Portman's office just to bring up the fact that our community needs a path to citizenship. The other thing I wanted to highlight real quick is our efforts to connect to the members of the Immigrant Dignity Coalition themselves. We realized, as many of you know, during the pandemic, it was hard to communicate, even through our simultaneous interpretation, even through guided discussions in the meetings. It was still hard to connect on that basis like you would if you were in person. And so one of the things, this is a lesson that we learned from that campaign last summer, which was mostly virtual, that we needed to create conversations between members. And so I wanted to show you this graphic, and I couldn't figure out how the audio would work in this PowerPoint, so I apologize. But one of our leaders, Horacio, shared his story as part of this conversational project and was talking about his reflection on the Biden administration so far and how they've been doing with immigration. And he says something very poignant. He says, "We don't want hope. We want action." Because with his election, there was a lot of hope, but there's been significant action, but there's so much more that he was expecting. And so it was just like a reminder that even though anti-immigrant people aren't in charge of the government anymore, there are a lot of battles in front of us. So I encourage you to look at our social media, to look at our website, to hear these clips from this project with the Immigrant Dignity Coalition. So today I'm here to ask you to help amplify these stories from IJPC, from the stories of our allies, from the stories of the summer campaign we had. This graphic up here is a collage of all those 17 people that shared their stories. And this work would not be possible without people's help in supporting and financially supporting IJPC. So while a lot of our support comes from our sponsoring communities, about a third, or maybe more than a third, comes from everyday people who believe peace and justice is possible. And lastly, I wanted to leave you with my contact information. I do have a business card in the back, as well as a brochure and an annual report. I believe there's a graphic in there about our finances if you're interested. But it's really, truly been an honor to be invited to speak today. And I apologize, my director couldn't be here. But this faith community has a lot of connections with IJPC. And I'm looking forward to the connections that we will continue to have in the future. Thank you.
I don't know if you realize, and I'm not sure I'm completely correct, and I know I'm messing up the people in the booth, but I can just talk. We have supported IJPC as a congregation every year, either with a donation or with a special plate collection. And so thank you so much, Samantha, for being here. I really appreciate it. We're going to sing "Let This Be a House of Peace." Now, I thought that we were familiar with this hymn, and then I looked at it and I realized we weren't. So it's on page 1054 in the blue hymnal. And when you are in trouble, you call on your family. So I asked Doug to lead us in the singing, and my grandson Adam will play.
And you're all going to have to help me out because I've had 20 minutes to get this song figured out, and the rhythms are hard, and everything is off. So pardon me if I'm a little off too. We'll be good. Play that. Sorry, play that. Thank you.
Guardian of dignity and worth held deep
works of art and melodies consecrate the atmosphere. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of prophecy. May vision for our children soar be our common theme. Let this be our house of myth and lore and legend, our trove of ancient story, a cradle of our tender dreams. Let this be our house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Thank you all for your assistance.
Am I on? Yeah. Friends and family, bless you all. Thank you so much. Our offertory for this month is for IJPC. And through a framework of nonviolence, IJPC works to end the death penalty in Ohio, educate about human trafficking, promote immigrant justice, and foster peace. Could you put that other slide back up? There are many ways to give to First Church. First of all, you can text GIVE to 513-717-7373. Or on Breeze, which is how I give, if you are a member, click Give Now. And you can do it online at www.firstchurch.com. Or mail your checks to 536 Linton Street, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45219. If this is your first time at First Church, please let the virtual or real plate pass you by. Your presence here is gift enough. And during the offertory music, for the first time since COVID, we are going to actually pass the plate. Thank you.
There
Before we close our service, I would like to recite these words from Israel Bafardi. The road that lies ahead of us is a long one, and the pace of progress will sometimes feel glacially slow. Never forget that glaciers over time can carve out Grand Canyons and Great Lakes. Moving tectonic plates can rise up mountains over millennia, or they can explode awe-inspiring volcanoes in milliseconds. Our commitment to love and justice can do the same. Now we will extinguish the chalice with these words, and please recite them as they come up on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the fire of community, the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Yes. There are a couple of updates that I was asked to mention at the end of the service, if they can come up on the screen so I can read them. Yeah. The restorative circles. Restorative circle introduction and demonstration with Sarah Elizabeth Anderson is July 24th, not the 17th, from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. This is a live Zoom with Sarah Elizabeth, and please, I was with her on the restorative circles that we worked on. She is wonderful, and it is really, really worth seeing. And the other one is upcoming services. Next week will be Samara Powers on the Horns of History, and then on the 24th, Sarah Elizabeth Anderson on restorative conversations at First Church.